The number one mistake that couples make that ruins trust, are you guilty of it? Find out now. You may think you have to put your kids first, but this is why that's ruining your life. You had kids and felt like you lost everything. Your love, your partner, yourself. Here is why it's time to start putting your partner and yourself before your kids and how it will impact them positively. Welcome to the I Am Education podcast, where we explore transformative ideas for parents, educators, and anyone passionate about shaping the future of education and humanity. Join us as we dive into the latest insights, practical tools, and inspiring conversations that empower both children and adults to thrive. Let's unlock the potential of education together. I Am Education, for the love of learning. When was the last time you and your partner truly connected? And I mean just the two of you. Because for many parents, the honest answer is, I can't even remember. And if you can remember, you likely spent most of the time together talking about the kids. You see, parenting is all-consuming. But what if I told you that prioritizing your partner isn't selfish? In fact, it's one of the best things you can do for your kids. In today's episode, we're talking about why putting your partner first strengthens your family, how it benefits your kids in the long run, and some practical ways to nurture your relationship in the chaos of parenting. And by the end, you'll see why investing in your partnership is actually an act of love for your whole family. You see, children thrive in environments where they see healthy, loving relationships modeled to them. And when you and your partner are strong, you're creating a foundation of stability, security, and emotional well-being for your kids. And putting your partner first doesn't mean neglecting your kids or their needs. It actually means recognizing that a strong partnership is the cornerstone of a healthy family. It's about prioritizing your connection, communication, and time together as a couple. Some of the common misconceptions out there are these. It's selfish. So many parents feel guilty for focusing on their relationship, but in reality, it's an investment in the family's overall well-being. And many of us may have grown up where one of our parents put everything into us as kids. Globally, a lot of the times that's the mum. That's when the mum forgets who they are and they put their children first, then they put their husband's needs first, or their partner's needs first, and then they might put their work first, and then somewhere down the list, it's them. And we wonder why a lot of parents, a lot of women get burnt out. In a partnership, it is important that you put the two of you first. Putting that relationship first is not selfish. What we want for our children are healthy role models. And putting that time into ourselves and to each other helps them long term. So it's actually one of the least selfish things you can do. Number 2, kids come first always. Have you ever heard this? Have you ever seen this play out? It might have been in your life. It might be what you're doing right now. And while kids' immediate needs often take precedence, consistently putting them over your partner, putting your partner on the back burner, can weaken your relationship and ultimately the family dynamic. This happens in a lot of relationships, especially in the first few years of life. For instance, if you've got children who are, around the ages of 2 or younger, it can be when it seems to be the most chaotic. And it is a season in life, yes. However, finding the moments to connect with each other is extremely important for both of your individual well-beings, but as the family as a whole. Because having children, yes, it changes and shapes who we are, but it doesn't have to change us completely. We can remember why we fell in love in the first place. And so kids' needs, like feeding them and looking after them and making sure they're getting enough sleep and all of those things is important, but you can find the time for each other. That's what we mean. Another, myth is that we'll just reconnect later once they're grown up, waiting until the kids are older to prioritize the relationship. This often leads to disconnection and resentment. That may hit home for some of you, how disconnected you feel from your partner, how much you're feeling resentful for the fact that if you are a stay-at-home mum, you might be resenting the fact that your partner gets to go out to work every single day. And then if you're the partner who works, you may be resenting the fact that your partner gets to stay home every day with the children. It's really important here to remember that you are in a relationship right here, right now, and all we have is now. And you may be having the belief that we'll just wait till, they're 10, 12, 18, and they're moved out of home. But do you know how many relationships where the children are older and they moved out of home and the couple looks at each other and have no idea who they are and then separate? It is a really, really crucial thing to remember that we only ever have the present moment. And so finding ways to connect with each other in this present moment, no matter what age your children are, is going to serve you long term. Because when kids see their parents prioritizing each other, they learn about healthy love and respect and what teamwork looks like. And they also feel secure knowing their family's foundation is strong. Because, look, many of us grew up with parents who experts would claim as behaviorists. So we were pulled up on our behavior. We were put in timeout. We were excluded. We also grew up in households where the parents excluded each other. That cold shoulder, that silence versus violence scenario, the washing up the dishes and banging them together. These are still ways in which our children can interpret that their foundation is rocky, that something is going on but they don't understand. And so your disconnection as a couple are affecting the stories that your children are telling themselves. And at Life by 8 and at I Am Education, we talk about the strength of a foundation in ourselves, our regulated nervous system and our ability to communicate. That plays a role here. If you can look after your nervous system and your skills and ability to communicate and then do that together with each other, you have the strongest foundation possible, no matter what else is going on in your lives, to build a strong family unit. And so I want to talk about some of the ways that you can actually prioritize your relationship and each other. So step 1, communicate regularly. Schedule regular check-ins with your partner so that you can discuss not just, logistics of who's taking who to sport, but also emotions, goals, and how you're feeling as a team. Even just 10 minutes of uninterrupted conversation can make a huge difference in how close you feel, how much you feel heard, and how much you understand your partner and where they're coming from. And it can help us have more information so we stop ourselves from going into story, as I like to call it. And so Dan Martell, a successful entrepreneur that I follow and love, his book, Buy Back Your Time, is amazing. But he talks about your calendar represents your true values. And so scheduling in time with your partner, regular dates, whatever that looks like, is extremely important for you to show that your partner matters, but also so that it doesn't get taken over by something else, that whether that's a work commitment, whether that's your child wanting to go to, a birthday party that they just got an invitation to. Where in your calendar are you scheduling the time for each other? Paul and I, we do Wednesday mornings. So our goal is always we go to the gym together and then we have brunch together. That's our time. We've been working towards making that a non-negotiable. And in the school holidays, we have struggled to find that sort of gets taken over by something else. However, when we were doing our planning for 2025, the big rocks, what does the year look like? That is in our calendars. And we don't take clients. We don't book events, even if there's an event on that we want to go on that day, or we go together. But prioritizing each other makes us feel like we matter to each other. And when we work in a business together, that is so much more important, because otherwise all we're talking about is children and the business. Step 2, prioritizing date nights. So set aside dedicated time for just the two of you. And this doesn't have to be, but it can be a fancy dinner. It can be a walk around your neighborhood or a quiet tea at home after the kids are asleep. But the goal here is that it's consistent. Consistency is key, and it gives you and your partner an idea of when this time is coming, and it can be even more exciting, especially if the expectation of sex is taken off the table. And I mean, that's a whole other podcast that's coming out in a couple of weeks. But what we want is to build intimacy and connection. But if we have prioritized everything else except each other, there can be this unspoken fear of, well, I don't want to connect because that means that I have to have sex and I can't be bothered, or I'm affected this way. That's not what this is about. Take that off the table. Just make the time to talk, to connect person to person. Step 3, set boundaries with kids. It's actually okay to tell your kids, this is our time right now. Teaching them that your relationship matters, it doesn't diminish their importance. It actually teaches them respect. And this is something that I've done for a very long time, and probably since Liam was born. And something that Paul's had to work towards is understanding that every time your child wants something doesn't mean you have to get up and give it to them right there and then. Because what you're actually doing is telling them that what they want is all that matters, and everything else gets put aside to them. That has different consequences as they get older. The thing is that if the boys see us out having tea out on the deck in the morning, that is our time. And getting to a point where we're both okay to say, we'll be in 10 minutes. This is mummy and daddy right now. We're just reconnecting. We'll come in and help you in a moment. Obviously, if it's a critical situation, we would jump in. However, what I'm talking about in this step is it's okay to tell your children to wait. It's okay to tell them that you're taking this moment for yourself, for each other. Because if you don't do that, what do you think is being modeled to them, and that they take that skill on when they're older? So for instance, many of us may have parents who did everything for us, and they jumped on, and they never really seemed to sit down at dinner, because it's like they sat down, ate really quickly, and then were cleaning up straight away, and we never had to do chores and all of these sort of things. But then our parents were burnt out, or they'd be short, or it never really felt like they were deeply connecting. It was like they were watching TV with us or doing something, but they weren't really there. This is where quality, not quantity, comes into play. Having the quality time for each other, for yourself, but also then giving them the quality of time so that they know that when you're with them, they are the priority. You see, this behavior that you do as a couple models that to them. And then when you model it as a priority with them, and you're not answering your work phone when you don't have to, when you're with them just because you're bored watching a Disney movie, whatever it is. But if you are showing them that the time together is important and that that's your time, then when you have time with them, that becomes quality rather than the quantity of time you think you're having them, but you're not really there. Because energetically, they can feel it. You've been out to dinner, you've been places where somebody hasn't really been there, and energetically you felt it. Your children feel it every single moment, every single day. Step 4, show affection daily. Now, this is something that I had to work on for a long time. I grew up in a single parent household. Mum had 4 girls, and my grandmother was also a single my entire life, majority of my life, I should say. And so I never really saw affection in a couple in front of me. And I also experienced it with mum at times, but almost in like what I would call like the passing of the night, like in the transition times of going to school or going to bed and those sort of things. But one of the biggest impacts I had when I did the work on this in myself and reflected back, and I moved out of home at 16. I spent a lot of time at my best friend's house growing up. And so I saw different things modeled by different parents. And the small gestures like a hug or a kiss here and there, or saying I love you when you walk past them, or just even, touching them on the shoulder. The thing is that this goes a long way. Even if in the midst of what feels like chaos and that you don't have time for each other, that is a bid for connection. That is a moment where you can feel reassured that you're in this together. And so if it's something that you don't do much or it was never modeled to you, have a go at playing with this in a way that feels comfortable for you. So even just the difference between saying love you versus I love you has a massive energetic shift on the person you're speaking to. So I'll give you an example. I love you compared to looking at them and going, I love you. Massive shift in how connected you feel. Love you has felt like it's become throwaway words. I love you is a connection and actually telling the person how you feel. And so being intentional, that can be something that is just one thing to work on. And then if touch is not something that is one of your love languages and you're working on that, then start with that. But have the conversation. Have what it means, what your intention is, or you don't want to touch because you're scared it's going to lead to something that you don't want to do. That's my story. That's the story that I've been working on probably for the last 15 years. But I have gotten to the points where I can say I love you. I've gotten to the points where I can be intentional with connection, with gestures and touch and showing my love. And it's still a work in progress. But I want you to know that it has made a massive difference to Paul, whose love languages are quality time and touch, whereas mine are acts of service and words of affirmation. So mine don't really have time or touch involved, but I'm learning how to love him the way he needs to be loved, as he has for me. And that has made us feel more connected than ever. Step 5, supporting each other in each other's roles. So acknowledging and appreciating what your partner brings to the family, whether that is emotional support, financial stability, or managing the household and the mental load that can go along with that. Expressing gratitude, it strengthens your bond and can have you feeling like you're each other's biggest cheerleader. Because when we get into competition about who does what and what's more valuable and who's worthy, we could start to feel resentment and we can start to take each other for granted, and we create distance between each other rather than connection and support. And for those who are new parents, and for those who, for the partner who may be staying home with the child, you may have had a successful career before you had children and you decided that you were going to stay home because you wanted to be home with the children, and your partner still goes to work. This can be one of the biggest things we see in parents in our services and in the people we coach, is the resentment that builds up when you're not saying what you want or saying what you mean. And so the parent who might be home all day with the children may resent the fact that the other partner is going off to what feels like freedom, which is work and earning money, and has this sense of individuality. And then they come home and the kids are chucked straight on them when they've come home from work, and they should like that because you need the freedom and the moment to yourself. Then there's also the opposite of that, where it's the parent going to work who's resenting the fact that the parent who's home with the children gets more time and love and connection with the children, or the fact that they're coming home and the children are being dumped on them and they're never really getting a break. These things seem so nuanced, but it is so imperative and so important that you speak about what this means or looks like for you as a couple. Because before children, I'd said to Paul, if you want somebody who's going to stay home with the children, I'm not that. I was lucky enough to know this about myself from the beginning. However, just because you agree to stay home with the children and then you've decided that that's not what you want to do, you can change any agreement at any time, as long as you explain why or you speak your truth. Because staying home as a parent, I believe, is one of the hardest jobs you can actually do. One of the most important, yes, especially in those younger years. However, if it's completely against your soul, your purpose, who you are, you need to remain connected to who you are. And if you feel like you're losing yourself, speak to your partner, speak to somebody before that gets darker. And If you are somebody who's going to work and you're resenting your partner for being home, or you're resenting for the fact that you're coming home, the kids are being put on you, and then the house is not clean and dinner, all of those sort of things, these need to be spoken about. Each other's expectations. What does support actually feel like for each person in the roles that you are living in this season of your life? Have the conversations. Because the thing is that connection, that love, that success, you're going to feel it. It's on the other side of those hard conversations that you aren't having. Big, big piece. One of the stats that we notice anecdotally across the early learning services that we have is how many divorces or separations happen when the youngest sibling or youngest child is 2. You get to a certain point, you've finished having children, they get to 2, but the disconnection, the distance is so far, what feels like it's so far gone. But one thing that I do want to say to you as a parent is that if there was ever love there in the first place, it is always possible to get that love back. It just may take work. And the things that are worth it usually take some type of work, some type of discipline, some type of self-responsibility. You just have to be willing to look for it and to do it, and you have to be in it together. But if you prioritize this now in supporting each other's roles right now, it sets your relationship up for success no matter what age your children are at, no matter what you're going through. Are you each other's biggest cheerleader? And if you're not, why not? And have the conversation. So, if you started prioritizing your relationship, I wonder what this could mean. I've spoken into some of the benefits, but I just want to point out a number of these benefits that doing this, changing these, having these conversations, why it's well worth it, and putting that effort in, what's going to happen? Well, firstly, you're going to have a stronger partnership. And by prioritizing your relationship, you're fostering that deeper connection. You are building a united front. You don't have children going to one parent thinking that that parent's going to say one thing and then they go to the other to get that thing. And then all of a sudden, as your children get older, they start to manipulate the two of you and you're not agreeing on things. Building that united front changes your partnership in such profound positive ways. Because this teamwork, it helps you tackle those parenting challenges more effectively. It helps you both be on the same page when it comes to dealing with life and the kids at different stages of their development. It also means healthier kids, because kids who grow up seeing a strong partnership, they are more likely to form healthy relationships themselves. They feel more secure in who they are, and they are less likely to internalize stress from parental conflict. For what feels like the entirety of human existence, we've been having the nature versus nurture debate about what affects a child growing up. But I like to believe it is absolutely a mix of both, and that the power of modeling is so huge that children learn more from what they see you do than what you say. And so experiencing a healthy, loving, connected relationship around them can absolutely have huge benefits on their development. Now, I also want to pre-frame this with, even in co-parenting situations where parents may have split up, healthy relationships can also be modeled here, just in a different way. It is all about the intention. And so there are people who will also stay in relationships for the kids, and their relationships are toxic, unhealthy, violent, silent, what all of those things that are the opposite to what I'm talking about today. And sometimes it is better that you're not together. However, when you are co-parenting, what is your intention? Are you willing to reflect and look inward? Where are you using the children? To either avoid yourself or to get back at the resentment you have for the ex-partner. You can model a healthy relationship, a healthy partnership, even if you're not in a romantic relationship together. It also means a happier home. And so when your relationship thrives, the entire household benefits. There's more joy, there's less tension, and there is a stronger sense of unity, of team, the family team, the family unit. And I want to dive deeper into this because What was happening in your home when you grew up? Did you grow up with two parents? One parent? Did you lose your parents at a young age? There are so many variables when we talk about this. And whatever it was for you, whatever happened in your home is what was modeled to you. If you had both parents but they fought all the time, how may this have impacted you? If you had a single parent who spoke negatively about the other parent or even the other gender negatively, men are this, men are that, women are this, women are that, how has that affected you? And if you lost your parents at a young age and you were in foster care or in different households or in a whole different family unit that you weren't part of day in, day out, you may have seen multiple types of relationships modeled to you. You see, this is where our attachment style comes into fruition. This is where the biggest impact happens on our development and our beliefs around relationships. It's also why in an early learning setting, the importance of consistency and care it's actually undervalued. Consistent educators and teachers, and this is now showing up with huge impact on children, because the need for teachers and educators to want to work part-time, different hours here and there, this is impacting the children in their care. It doesn't actually matter what age, whether this is in the early years, whether this is at primary school, even in high school. The fact is that educators and teachers, they want more flexibility for their own families. It's a heavily female force, right? But them wanting part-time, them wanting flexible hours impacts children's consistency of care. So if you imagine that we've got families with children who are going to two different households over a fortnight, or they're going in and out of different homes, and then they're going to school where there's different teachers because they're job sharing, all of these things, where is the attachment? Where is the consistency or the modeling of a healthy relationship for that child? Now, I'm talking into this because I don't think people realize how much this is impacting the development of who we are and what's happening, whether it's in youth justice issues here in Australia or across the world, or if it's even the declining birth rate. All of these things have a massive impact. This specifically, healthy relationships being modeled to people, where is this happening and how are you impacting it? And so it is really important that when we look at heavily female-forced workforces and that need for part-time and the amount of temp work is being used and the sector as a whole being undervalued and underpaid for the work that they truly do, how we have what we have. And that includes an increase in domestic violence. That includes increase in single parents. That increases the mental health and suicide rates. All of these things increasing is a lack of connection. It is the lack of relationships, of healthy partnerships, even in friendships. And so what I've spoken about today, to recap on it because it is so important, we explored why putting your partner first isn't selfish, but it's actually essential. When I say first, I mean before the children. I will always talk about you need to put yourself first, but putting your partner before your children makes a massive difference in your family unit. We talked about what it means to prioritize your relationship, some ways on how to do it, and the profound impact it has on your kids and family as a whole. So I would, as always, love to hear from you. What is one thing that you can do this week to prioritize your partner? I would love for you to share your ideas with us on social media or in the comments. And I've created a free relationship reset guide with simple steps to reconnect with your partner. You can check the link in the show notes to download it. But don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who could use a little relationship inspiration. So thanks for joining me today. And remember, a strong partnership is the foundation of a happy, healthy family. Prioritize each other and the rest will follow. Until next time, take care and keep growing together.